Hello and welcome to Only Stupid Answers. My name is Sam Basher.
I'm DJ Woldridge.
And today we're taking one more look at the MCU's Captain Marvel first film. That's how you'd say that title. Pretty good. We did a review for this movie when it came out last year in 2019. Just trying to keep track of everything.
Yes.
This was an
Feels like a lifetime
review.
ago.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, no, this was we saw this opening night, which was pretty fun.
Yeah.
Oh no, I couldn't.
Yes.
You got to go to like a special screening for it, and I had to watch it like a comedy.
Yes, that was like our first.
Somewhere else.
I think that was our first Disney screening, and I think it was Maud Garrett hopped on to review it with me. Big shout out to her. Thanks to her. And also, for those of you that just watch our YouTube stuff, we did a big 200th episode special on our podcast with Maud Garrett and Roxy Stryer and Steve Zergoza and Dan Casey and Joe Beretta, a whole bunch of people. So you should check that out wherever podcasts are sold.
Yeah, oh my goodness, it is a beast. It is a monster. So please enjoy it and enjoy our revisit into the MCU. So last week we did Captain America, the first Avengers.
Yes.
So we're working our way chronologically through the MCU to see if we learn anything. Sure, those earlier movies may not have had the groundwork for future movies, but it's fair to say that future writers were able to look back to see what was set up in previous films and build off.
Yes, and
so with...
Yeah, and I think this is kind of an interesting experiment too, to do it in the chronological order of when the movies are dated, because we get one of the Phase 1 movies right off the bat, like Sam said, with Captain America set in 1940, and now we jump into one of the more recent movies with Captain Marvel, but the two captains, which the movie is set in the 1990s, but like Sam said, the movie came out in 2019.
1995, and you guys, if you don't know, you get the gist. Carol Danvers becomes one of the universe's most powerful heroes when Earth is caught in the middle of a galactic war between two alien races. Yes.
And on IMDb, as of this recording, it has 78% on the tomato meter, 48% audience score. Packed with action, humor, and visual thrills, Captain Marvel introduces the MCU's latest hero with an origin story that makes effective use of the franchise's signature formula. Wow, that is as vague and jumbled as the movie itself.
Very, very true. That is...
Yeah.
I guess it's a nice review.
Yeah,
and also
it's a weird one.
That audience score does line up with all of those people who were like negative review bombing the film before it even came out.
The audience score is a little bit harsh, but the critic score isn't like that great either.
No, it's pretty fair. And you know what? After watching it the first time, I was like lukewarm on the film. There were moments that I really dug. That stuck with me, that I enjoyed. And on the rewatch, my opinion only changed a little bit in terms of how much I ended up enjoying the film's latter half, or latter 2/3. The first third of this film, it's so difficult to process what you're looking at, because like a lot of the characters aren't properly introduced. We don't get to really know anybody, not just like character traits, character names.
Yeah,
like it's. For the life of me, it's so hard to remember what Jude Law's character's name is, Yonrog, but you only hear that occasionally, like in passing. You don't like. I don't think I need everyone to have name tags or to have like title cards that pop up like in Suicide Squad. Like but it wouldn't hurt if people had like very clear introductions as to why or who they are. Yeah, or
identifiable character traits, discernible personality. And I think this
wouldn't hurt.
I think this is that affects kind of the entire movie. Not to heap on at the beginning, because let me just off the bat, I like Brie Larson as an actress. Typically, the character of Captain Marvel is cool. There's some fun visuals in this. Everybody is game and having a fun time. Especially, I think Samuel Jackson. And there's some cool visuals specifically in the depiction of her powers, and a major shout out to the Skrulls and the way they're depicting Talos in particular. I think they're interesting visually and they're cool characters, but I think the kind of the jumbled nature of the movie even goes down to the main character, because it's funny watching Captain America first, because Captain America has the potential to be like very bland, but right off the bat, we set up like he's a decent guy. He doesn't like bullies. He doesn't mince words, and he just always tries to do the right thing. And there's a very clear, distinct character that you can latch onto that anchors him in later movies. If you asked me anything about what defines Carol as a character, In this movie, I couldn't tell you. Like, I don't know what to find. And part of that is in the nature of the story, in that she doesn't really know who she is, so she's finding herself. And it all just feels like a bunch of ideas were thrown in the hat, and they just picked a few of them and tried to make a movie out of it, which just kind of, it's hard to anchor yourself on anything in particular to be like, oh, this is why this matters, or this is why I should care.
I don't disagree, because there are a lot of really cool ideas. The way the Skrulls transform, the way Carol's powers are brought to life.
Yeah.
Also, you brought it up, but Sam Jackson, it's hard to imagine him having more fun. He looks like he's smiling the whole time, and I don't know if that's like a positive or a negative. I just enjoyed seeing him have a good time playing like a younger, more youthful Nick Fury.
Yeah.
Not the Nick Fury that we're used to. Like fun Uncle Nick Fury.
Yeah.
He's great with kids, great with cats. Yeah, and I wish as well that I knew Carol more. Like, even when she shows up in like Avengers Endgame, she's very calm and cool and collected, and she's a solid fighter, and she knows who she is, but I just wish I got to know that person more. You know, like, she's very sure of herself, and that's great, but I just wish I knew I wish I just knew more about her as an individual. We get to learn more about her with Monica and Marie Rambeau, her friends, and the daughter of her friend, and they're great. Like, all the side characters in this film are really good. I really like Ben Mendelsohn's performance in this movie, because he hadn't clicked with me really yet, but after this movie I'm like, oh, I get you. I understand you now. You've got serious comedic chops. One of the best jokes, and it's such a good like science sci-fi space joke, when he looks at the coordinates. He's like, "Oh, you meant space?" He's like, "You're my science guy. How'd you mess this up?" Like, I love that's such a good moment in the film. And yeah, so I just wish I understood her more. And when we were doing our rewatch, because we do our watch-alongs on Patreon, which if you can join right now for as low as $5 a month and join us for all of our activities right now during this whole isolation. And we would greatly appreciate it. But I mentioned during our screening, I couldn't wait for the Winter Soldier for Captain Marvel, in the sense that not the character. I don't need an evil version of Captain America or Captain Marvel to make this work, but the idea of like filmmakers who have like a very clear direction they want to take this character. Like, the angle in this movie is that it's kind of like a zany, weird, off the wall, like a space adventure, but not like Guardians of the Galaxy. It is its own flavor of zany, which is good. Like, you can and the next movie can be funny as well. Like, there are still some solid jokes in Winter Soldier, but the movie is more serious compared to other films in the MCU. Now, I don't know what that exactly is for Captain Marvel, but I wouldn't mind if it had like a really clear direction of what they want Carol to have to go through, in the sense of like challenging her ideology. Maybe it's maybe challenging her power, because she is so powerful. It's like, what does that mean in terms of your responsibility to others? Because we know that she is the like cosmic Avenger. She is the person going planet to planet, looking after people, helping them out, and she is basically an entire Avengers team by herself, which is awesome.
Yeah.
But what does that mean for Earth? What does that mean for herself? What does that mean for her relationships? And like, also, like, can she have a life outside of this? And what does her life look like since she left at the end of this movie, leading up to Endgame? You know, she's been out in space for almost 20 years. Earth time. I don't know what that
30
means
years.
for her exactly.
Almost 30 years.
Oh, 30 years. Yeah. And, because we're in 2020 now. And in that time, since it's like 2024 and everything, you know, with all the movies being pushed back, the timeline of Avengers Endgame is starting to line up a little bit.
It is.
It's starting to make more sense.
Maybe in our universe, instead of the snap, it's the quarantine.
Maybe. Yeah. Who knows?
And you know what? We'll just call it the blip. We'll wish it away one day, and we'll just refer to it as the oopsie.
We'll barely even remember.
Exactly.
Barely even be in textbooks. But yeah, no, I can't wait for just because I know there will be new directors who will be stepping in for the sequel.
Yes.
And that actually kind of brings me to like the question I want to throw to you, and I'm going to be asking some other people as well. So, in Captain Marvel 2, there have been some rumors that have been flying about this week, even though movie news, and specifically Marvel movie news, is pretty slim. Yeah. There was a rumor that came out that Captain Marvel 2 will be the setup for what the next iteration of the Avengers could look like. And I want to ask you, what do you think that could look like exactly? And what would you want to see? Because the original pitch was like Wolverine will show up in Captain Marvel too, and like everyone's like, no, that's not gonna happen.
Yeah, that's silly. That's a silly place to introduce Wolverine. It's all those like fanboys that are like, I want more dudes in my. It's like whatever. I do think there's merit in having Rogue show up because her and Carol have a long history in the comics, and I think that cool. Is a character that organically fits into trying to make Captain Marvel work. But I think as far as sequels go, I think they need to give Carol a distinct personality, and then and directive and goal, and then that'll allow you to dictate what the challenge to that will be. I think we need to do some legwork. This more than any other movie felt like it suffered the most from trying to fit into the Marvel framework because we wanted her in Endgame, and so we had to like backlog how she was going to fit into that. And so this movie feels like, you know, we're trying to set up who she is to get to Endgame, and so there's not a lot of like really defining who this person is, as opposed to something like, you know, Black Panther or Iron Man or something where it's like this is who this person is.
And with that, just to kind of build off that really quick, in the sense of, just because to kind of bring it back to my connection to Winter Soldier, it became a challenge of a man out of time moving forward for him. Not like in Avengers, you're busy with the team up and everything and just seeing the characters interact with each other. But when in a follow-up Captain America movie that takes place in present day, you have to challenge what that person's been through and compare and kind of through the lens of what's happening today, and do his beliefs and morals and like just his moral code, does it even work in today's world? And it does, but it does mean that we have to challenge certain institutions. And I think that's a cool way to like look at Carol, because she comes from a very militaristic alien society. That's a big part of her life, even though she wasn't there. She's only there for like 6 years, but she also was in the U.S. military as well, in the Air Force. So what does that mean in terms of how she views security, or maybe like there's no way that the U.S. government doesn't like take a look at like her powers now, the way like it's like the Superman problem for DC Comics, where it's like what do? You could have like her version of a Lex Luthor. I don't think you need to do that, but you could have a character that has to challenge her in the ways that Lex Luthor does.
Yeah, I think there's been suggestions of having Michael Korvac be an antagonist, and Korvac was a part of an Avengers arc called the Korvac Saga, and he is tremendously powerful. And I think there would be a really interesting. I think that could be really interesting is if you kind of meld a few characters together. Like I think you could make Korvac become in his, as his powers grow, he could become the MCU's version of the Beyonder, and that could set up something like Secret Wars, which I think would be a really smart. I think setting up something like Secret Wars would be a good like thing to build towards as the next Infinity War. Like 10 years from now, we bring in we start laying the seeds for Secret Wars, and then in the original Secret Wars comic, Beyonder pulled all the heroes and all the villains to fight. You could add an extra layer where he pulls all the heroes and villains from throughout time and space. So Robert Downey Jr. comes back as Iron Man because he pulls them out of time. Captain America comes back. You know what I mean? Like that's your next big, like not only is it all our teams, but it's all your old favorites are back, because the Beyonder is plucking them from space and time. And that's a good way to fill out the villain ranks, because the Marvel movies don't really have a good backlog of villains to use for Secret Wars.
And really quick, what's the power base for Beyond?
Everything.
People don't know.
He's God. He's basically able to do whatever the writers want him to do. And that's the thing, is Beyonder is not a very interesting character on his own. The more interesting aspect of that in Secret Wars is Doctor Doom ends up taking the Beyonder's powers, and then of course in Jonathan Hickman's recent Secret Wars comic, Doctor Doom is the main antagonist. So if you attached Beyonder to a character like Marco Korvac, who is a normal person that ends up dealing, it's a classic sci-fi trope and stuff in Star Trek and other sci-fi stories about this normal dude that suddenly has godlike power, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. It's that type of story. You attach that to Beyonder, so now suddenly he has a character. He is a character. He has an arc, and he is a character that would be a genuine challenge for Carol, but also potentially set up bigger bigger challenges that that set up future Avengers movies and stuff like that. But beyond her powers and because people are like, oh, they're too powerful, Superman, da 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 da. That's I always think that stuff is overblown. What matters is the character stuff. The reason Marvel, I think, is successful as it is because it found a way to tap into these characters in a way that audiences could really attach to. People love Robert Downey Jr. as Tony Stark. They love Chris Evans as Captain America. They love the personalities of the Guardians of the Galaxies. So they really need, and I think the reason Captain Marvel maybe struggled, obviously there's all the like nerd boy haters out there. Forget about those people. I think the reason even the critics' consensus is like 78 is we need to really define who Carol is, figure out Brie Larson's take on the character. Because you mentioned Winter Soldier, but also on our stream you mentioned Thor Ragnarok. And that's where the first two Thor movies are, when we did the rewatch from Infinity War, I think are bad. The first two Thor movies are bad. Thor fared better in the Avengers movies. They were closer to a take that really worked. He worked in the ensemble, but the first Thor movie that really clicked was Ragnarok. And so I think Captain Marvel Carol needs a Ragnarok where it's like, oh, this, because Ragnarok, I think, took off because it's like, oh, this is Chris Hemsworth's take on Thor. This is the best moment to Chris Hemsworth's skills match what we're trying to do with Thor, and it all just works. That's what we need with Carol. We need like, okay, here's what Brie Larson wants to bring with the character. Here's what's working with the MCU. And if we can get those to line up, then you'll have a character that really clicks in a movie that people will enjoy.
I fully agree. And just kind of bringing it back to Michael Korvac, just make sure I'm saying that correctly.
Yes.
Michael.
Yeah, whatever. So it's a total made-up name.
Yeah, so they can call him whatever they want. But the idea of challenging her powers in the sense of having another character show up that's trying to be as powerful as she is, like, there is also something interesting you could do when talking about gender politics that this movie did do. And one of the strongest moments for me is the end when Jude Law's like, no fireworks show, just you and me, just a regular old fight where I know I have the higher ground, and she doesn't deal with it. It's such a strong moment in the movie, and it's one of my favorite moments for Carol, even in Endgame when she gets to like take on Thanos. That's pretty cool. Like, she gets headbutted and it doesn't do anything to her. That's awesome.
Yeah.
But the idea of her not having to deal with those kind of barriers anymore, and she's able to overcome them, having a mirror of that, seeing a person, Michael Korvac or whoever, whomever you want it to be, having those barriers lifted because of like godlike abilities, and them trying to do the right thing but not being able to. It allows you to analyze who Carol is in a pretty clear way, and also define her against this person, where it is someone trying to do the right thing, and Carol is also trying to do the right thing, but because of this power and because of who she is as an individual, like you said, it's just kind of, it comes back to the Superman problem, that it's not only that the fact that he's Kryptonian, it's the fact that he was raised by good parents who loved him, and he has a good head on his shoulders, and he's able to make the right decisions, and that makes him the Superman. And having Carol go through a similar route, thanks to her support from her friends, like, it'd be really cool to like kind of like give her more of a supporting cast that's alive in present day, as far as we know, because like it's hard to say. We have Nick Fury, and we've got Monica, maybe Maria as well, hard to say. But I think having those challenges, having her have to question her humanity, but also her Kree background now, because it is a part of her. It isn't like she's not Kree, but she does have these abilities that are cosmic. She did live there for a long time, and she considered herself part of that community, and also another individual of equal but different power set. Also, I think we can get a lot of really cool visuals similar to Mysterio's fight scene with Spider-Man. The way that he's able to tap into his spider sense, and that's how he's able to overcome these illusions that he's seeing, was an amazing. Every single time we got to see really cool illusions, it was awesome. So having someone with like literal godlike ability, and having Carol being brought in to have to deal with this, I think it would be really cool. Also, it's like got some Doctor Strange vibes to it. You could have, and also in the sense of her setting up the next iteration of the Avengers. I love Al Ewing's run with the Ultimates, which was run by Carol, Black Panther, Monica Rambeau, Blue Marvel, and Miss America Chavez, which I wouldn't mind if she was in these movies as well. I think she'd be pretty cool. But the idea of Carol, now that we've had universe leveling threats, Carol's setting up a more cosmically powered Avengers team. So you've got Thor, because like I feel like they could go toe to toe, and that'd be pretty cool. But you could also, if we wanted to start introducing like Adam Warlock in Guardians of the Galaxy 3, that'd be pretty cool to see him or a version of him. Maybe Silver Surfer would be interesting as well. But also, I think mutants would be interesting if you threw Rogue on the team as well. But I think it would be most interesting to see a more cosmically powered Avengers team, something that could take on threats like Thanos more easily. Maybe you do have some of the Eternals being a part of that team, but also the idea at the same time, in conjunction, making a more ground level team, similar to like Captain America's underground Avengers, you know, with like Falcon, Black Widow, and Vision and Scarlet Witch kind of. Maybe we have like Shang-Chi and like Blade and any of the surviving Avengers like Winter Soldier or Falcon, now Captain America, creating those teams. I think it'd be interesting to have two very distinct Avengers teams that have to come together. Either there's like a Civil War 2 where they have to go up against each other. I don't know how you take on Captain Marvel.
But if there's a team with like Captain Marvel, Black Panther, Thor, and it's like Doctor Strange, you're like, wait, hold on, what?
Wait a minute, hold on. But having I think it'd be really interesting setting up a more cosmically powered Avengers teams with Carol Danvers, but also at the same time setting up a more ground level Avengers team. And you can call them whatever you want to, you know? But the more teams we start setting up in the MCU, I think we're going to get a lot cooler movies, a lot more challenging dynamics, which is what made like Civil War so interesting, and we became so invested when Tony and Cap were able to make up, and
when they were able to make out, out.
That's what we were waiting for. We were hooting and hollering for it. And also when there's threats, the incoming threats in future movies, having like just more characters to have to take on those threats, I think would be really interesting.
Yeah, and also you brought up the final conflict with Yon-Rogg, iconic character Yon-Rogg, portrayed by Jude Law. And I really like that. It's one of the scenes I like in the movie where, you know, he tries to do the classic, like, let's fight on equal level just to make it better for him. And she just blasts him because that's what they should do. You know, typically it's like, okay, let's do that. And then, you know, then it becomes a challenge. It's like, just blast him. Let's just get this over with. And so I like that she does that, but it would be interesting if you had, you know, there's the iconic scene in Indiana Jones, Raiders of the Lost Ark, where the guy comes at him with a sword and he just shoots the guy. And then in Temple of Doom, they did the scene again, but he didn't have his gun, so he actually had to fight them. It'd be interesting if maybe with the inclusion of Rogue and her power absorption abilities or something like that, Carol's become very dependent on her abilities, and she actually is forced into a position where she has to prove herself again without them. And that could be
Very
a really
Iron
just
Man
like
3.
Exactly. That's what I was just thinking. The Iron Man 3, which I thought is some of the best work with Tony Stark as a character when he's realizing he is more than the suit, which is weirdly a lesson Spider-Man had to learn too. Even though with these spider powers, you're nothing without the suit. But yeah, that could be interesting too.
I fully agree, but I do want to hear from you guys in the comments down below. What do you want to see from a Captain Marvel 2 whenever that movie comes out?
Yes.
Whenever you see them. Who do you want to see her go up against? What kind of team do you want to see her building out in the cosmos or here on Earth? I think Doctor Strange and her could have really interesting back and forths. We haven't even seen them interact with each other besides a funeral. And he was making a little water spout tornado while she was dunking on Thanos.
Yes.
So, like, you know, it's tough. You know, we have to figure it out. But I do want to hear your suggestions down below.
Everybody,
say
hi to my Flurkin.
Aw, you can make a little pet Avengers.
Exactly.
You can get Lockjaw back in the MCU.
What do I need to do to make a MCU pet Avengers?
I read the Pet Avengers, all right? I was a supporter of the Pet Avengers.
I was into the Pet Avengers before they were cool.
What would you want to see in the next movie, in a follow-up film?
She left on a mission. She left on a mission to end the war, fight the Kree, destroy the Supreme Intelligence. But we know, because of the Guardians movies, the Kree are still around. So she failed at her mission, maybe, or something happened. So what was that failure? Because like you guys were talking about earlier, she has the Superman problem now where she's so strong. How do you make her stories compelling? And you can, obviously, because Superman's been around forever. So it could be done.
He's a little popular.
Yeah. And even with her stuff in the comics, I think I always like the cosmic stuff even more. Because on Earth, she is a little overpowered.
Yeah, it's kind of she's punching down most of the time. There's not really anyone that can really keep up with her besides Rogue or someone. In her comic right now, She-Hulk plays a pretty big role, and She-Hulk is getting her own series on Disney Plus. I don't think it'd be the worst idea to have her pop up in a Captain Marvel movie. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree about, seeing those relationships because, especially in the first movie, she spends so much of it in solitude, basically. I mean, yes, she has the Kree, but, she's never really one of them. She has her friends from the past, but she doesn't really remember them. So most of it really is her on her own. And so now, she's going to be put in more of a position where she has to be a team player instead of just being the overpowered one that can just kind of take on the world on her own. I think that's going to play a very interesting part in her personal dynamics to see how she adapts from, being this solo person that can just do anything she needs to, having to rely on a team and having to be a team player and, have that role in her everyday life.
I agree. I think that there's a lot of opportunity with her sequel, and I love the idea that she's the leader of this next team. That's what the rumor was saying, and because why not? Why wouldn't she be? She's a captain. She's OP. She's took on Thanos single-handedly, and she basically won. I'll say that she basically won. He started using cosmic gobbledygook, but she had the cosmic gobbledygook inside her the whole time.
Exactly. I think it should be like how Tony and Steve kind of co-led the Avengers. I think it should be Black Panther and Captain Marvel.
Ooh, I think that could be really cool.
Also, recall, Sam,
that
traditionally in the comics, Captain Marvel and Jessica Jones are very close friends, and Marvel's about ready to get the Jessica Jones rights back.
Yeah, well, if we keep hanging out in the quarantine, we'll just let that clock run out. We'll get Daredevil back, Luke Cage, Jessica Jones, Iron Fist. Could you imagine Iron Fist back teaming up with Captain Marvel? They both have glowy hands.
Glowy hands.
Am I right? Caitlin, do you want to see Iron Fist or Jessica Jones more? And why is it Iron Fist?
I would say Jessica Jones. I'm sorry, Sam.
It doesn't.
Well, I guess that's the end of this interview. And there you have it, gang. Let us know what you think of our theories in the comments down below. Make sure you follow us on Twitter at Sam Basher.
At DJ Talks Trash.
At Only Stupid Answers.
Yank out the vowels from stupid. As Sam said, you can watch these movies with us on patreon.com/onlystupidanswers. It's only $5 a month. We've put everything at the lower tier. And the cool thing about that is not only do you get extra content, but you're part of an amazing community of people that like the things that you like and like each other. And it's very rewarding, and it's a very cool and supportive group that I'm very proud to be a part of. And you can be a part of it too by going to patreon.com/onlystupidanswers.
Do not miss out. Next week, we're going to be checking out the next chronological MCU film, Iron Man 1. That wasn't a big surprise. There's not that many old ones, but we'll be checking out that one. Not yet. It's going to get confusing in a little bit, but I'm very excited to check it out with all of you and revisit that film because hot diggity dog, I'm a fan of that one. But please subscribe, share, do all the good stuff, and we'll see you guys next time.
Bye-bye.